Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the DRF Friday race of the day, which comes out in New York at Belmont at the Big A, race at Aqueduct. The Grade 2 Beldame is the Friday feature. This one going the 1.125 distance for the 3-year-old and up fillies on the dirt. And Mike, this is a race with a storied history. This used to be one of the top races in the entire division for the 3-year-old fillies and the older fillies and mares before the days of the Breeders' Cup. This was sort of a championship race at the end of the season. We saw the likes of Lady Secret, Personal Ensign, Go for Wand, Serena Song, even more recently, stars of the game like Havre de Grace and Royal Delta win this race. Yeah. This field is not the Beldame of old.
Yeah, that's to say the least. I just really, for whatever reason, I guess couldn't get anybody to run in this thing. We were sort of talking about it before it came on, David, and you were saying not surprised that they put it on a Friday because it just doesn't belong on a Saturday card.
Yeah, this is a race that's definitely been hurt by the proliferation of the Breeders' Cup being the year-end goal for a lot of these horses. And races like this in September just are not used as preps for the Breeders' Cup like they used to be, with so many horses ending their campaigns in the summer before resting up for the Breeders' Cup. And we'll see if any of these come back in the Breeders' Cup distaff. The number 5 Randomized is a horse that has gone to that race in the past. And Randomized is a prior Beldame winner. She won this race against another small field in 2023. So we'll see if she can win her second Beldame of her career. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race. And Mike, we know the game plan with Randomized. She's going to go to the front. She's always at her best when she can control through setting her own controlled pace. And in a race like this, it feels like she's going to have that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. This is a huge advantage for a horse like Randomized, she's a speed horse. She wants to be on the lead in her races. And when she gets there without pressure, she's actually proven to be really, really hard to beat. And we just saw that 2 starts back in the Molly Pitcher, where 2 of her main rivals in this field were both in there. Randomized had the rail. She made the lead and they couldn't catch her.
The number 4, Majestic Oops, is a horse who's got some tactical speed, but definitely not quick enough to go with Randomized. Maybe the number 3, Gunsong, gets a more aggressive ride in this race. She is the horse that has contested paces in the past and been effective using that running style. Just remains to be seen if she's still got that same speed at this stage of her career. Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1, Just Music. And I'll note as we start going through these runners, if you want to handicap along with Mike and me, you can access free past performances for this race, with it being the DRF Friday race of the day. Mike, with Just Music, she's a horse who's been pretty consistent against Allowance Company recently, but she does feel like one that was just hustled into this race to make it go with 5, not 4.
Yeah, exactly. So there will be times you'll see Linda Rice and her horse in a race like this, and you'll actually take a second look, because Linda doesn't just take shots in stakes races. She's either running them to win or she's not running them at all. But it does this filly, she's 4 years old. She almost had to get hustled in here. There's just no way that she can beat this field.
Number 2, Margie's Intention, is the lone 3-year-old taking on the older horses in this Beldame. And interesting that Brad Cox has picked out this spot for her. I mean, I guess her stablemate Good Cheer participated in the cotillion, so going to split horses like that up. And this feels like a winnable race for a 3-year-old, I guess, without the presence of Randomized. And, Mike, Margie's Intention is a horse who's been progressive. She's taken slight steps forward since the beginning of her season, made a nice late move to win the Black-Eyed Susan. And in her last couple of races, the Delaware Oaks and the Alabama, the paces haven't really worked out for her. She actually closed pretty well into a slow pace too back in that Delaware Oaks. And last time out, she's just not quite as good as the likes of Nitrogen and Good Cheer, but the pace also didn't work for her. I guess the big issue with a horse like Randomized here is she going to get the pace that she needs to close into once again? Yeah,
she's not going to get any additional help in this race. It doesn't seem like. We'll see if somebody decides to get aggressive here and go after Randomized. And the other thing, too, is, David, I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and suggest that Randomized is a star, because I don't think that she is, but she's probably better than any of the 3-year-old fillies that Margie's Intention has been running, I guess. I mean, that's not a particularly strong crop as far as the dirt routers go. They're going to take a shot here. I have no problem with it, but she's going to have to run the best race of her life if Randomized shows up.
Can the number 3 Gunsong finally get back to that form that we saw out of her in the second half of her 3-year-old season last year, when she ran the eventual Horse of the Year, Torpedo Anna, to a neck decision in the cotillion at 44-1, came right back and was a game second in the Mother Goose after that? But Mike, since coming back for her 4-year-old season, we just have not seen that form. I mean, I guess you could have given her an excuse with the layoff coming off the break at Gulfstream Park back in March, but she's just been pretty disappointing in all 3 stakes attempts since then. She had no no answer going this distance last time in the Shufi up at Saratoga. So she's a little tough to have confidence in, but going back, there are a couple of races in her PPs that would make her mildly interesting here.
Yeah, she was okay as a 3-year-old. My take on her especially at the end of her campaign last year was that she wasn't as close to beating Torpedo Anna, I don't think, at the cotillion as maybe it looked like. I mean, I will take nothing away from her performance there. She ran fine, but she was never winning that race. And I really didn't like her performance in the Mother Goose at the end of the year. I know that was another close finish in a Greatest Stakes race, but I didn't think she ran well in there at all. I would be more lenient taking those positions if she had come back this year and run good races as a 4-year-old, but she hasn't.
The number 4, Majestic Oops, has had an interesting career. Raced at circuits all over the country. She was competing in lower level claiming races at Santa Anita at one point. She went to Golden Gate, even up to Century Mile. But since coming into the Dan Ward barn for the last several starts of her career, she has just taken her game to a new level. She earned a grade 3 placing, 2 back behind Randomized in the Molly Pitcher, came back and earned a grade 1 placing last time in the Ballerina when they cut her back to 7 furlongs and was beaten by some good horses in that race in Hope Road and Scylla, who are legitimate grade 1, grade 2 competitors. So this is the right kind of spot for Majestic Oops, Mike. I don't know if I love her going as far as 9 furlongs. To me, that could be stretching her just a little bit. And also, she's going to have to find a way to turn the tables on Randomized in a race where that foe could be controlling the pace again.
Yeah, exactly. The only, I looked at her for a long time too, wondering if she was the one where maybe they just feel like, listen, we can't beat Randomized if we concede to her like we did in the Molly Pitcher. So maybe this time they just go after her and sort of make her race and see if that works any better. I'm not convinced that they're going to try that, but it might be her only chance to win. Her recent form is rock solid. I'm not knocking it. She was really no match for Randomized in the Molly Pitcher, but she ran fine in there. And her Ballerina was fine too. She was only 3rd best. She never looked like she was going to win, but that's a good result for this filly.
She does have the speed to go after Randomized. We saw it last time in that Ballerina where she was only a couple lengths off that 22 and change opening quarter. Don't know if she's going to use it in this spot. The number 5, Randomized, she is simply the horse to beat. Like I said, the 2023 Beldame winner, a horse who has been pretty inconsistent and coming back for this 5-year-old campaign. We'll take a look at that Molly Pitcher that we were referencing 2 back where she beat Majestic Oops, and she got the kind of trip in this race, Mike, that I think most people would be expecting her to get on Friday in the Beldame. Went to the front end, didn't receive a whole lot of pressure. And when she's able to control in that situation, she is really tough to pass in the late stages. And she puts in a strong finish to hold this field at bay. And there were some good horses behind her, even besides Majestic Oops. The horse is finishing 4th in here, Dorth Vader. She came back to give Torpedo Anna all that she could handle in the grade 1 personal ensign up at Saratoga in the middle of the summer. So that was a strong field that Randomized beat. She came back in that personal ensign that I mentioned, and that was her kryptonite, Mike. A horse went after her on the front end. She couldn't deal with it, and she folded very early in that race. And we've seen that happen time and again with Randomized, but I don't see that scenario playing out here, so maybe you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it's at least worth pointing out that when horses really challenge her on the lead, and listen, there was also races in her past where she got challenged and was dead game through the stretch, but most of those races were a little bit further back in her PPs. Last time she just totally threw it in there. It was a disappointing performance, but with the kind of trip that she just really doesn't seem like she wants anymore. She's very tough when she gets comfortable on the early lead, and 9 furlongs is no issue for her when she gets that kind of a trip, and it feels like she might get that kind of trip on Friday.
Mike, one concern that I'll just bring up that I'm not going to put too much stock in at this point is the fact that there is rain in the forecast from Thursday into Friday this week in New York. It seems like it is very, very likely we're going to have a wet track on Friday at Belmont at the Big A. And you will note she has that sloppy track performance in the Ogden Phipps where not only was there pace pressure when she faded, she never made the lead that day and just didn't have her typical early speed. Is that a minor concern that there's a possibility she hates a wet track?
It has to be, because you're right. It's not like she just ran poorly that day on a wet track. She didn't pick her feet up in there. It was almost like she hated it. She was out of contention very early on in that race and never ran.
Let's go to our picks for this grade 2 Beldame. And Mike, I thought about that scenario, maybe Randomized not liking a wet track, maybe somebody going after her and, that creating some chaos in this race that sets it up for somebody else. I ultimately couldn't quite convince myself this isn't a race that I'm looking forward to betting at all. I considered Margie's intention, who does have 2 wet track victories, but couldn't quite make her good enough. I'm probably not going to play this race, put Randomized on top.
Went through the same process you did. I probably will have no money on this race at all. I'm certainly not betting against Randomized, and I'm not betting on her either.
5-2-4 for me, and 5-4-3 for Mike in the Grade 2 Beldame, the DRF Friday race of the day out at Belmont at the Big A. Good luck ever playing the races later this week.